All right, welcome back. In case you're just joining us, I think it's the not too right time. You've missed the first half of the show, so you're joining us the second half of the program. I did talk about our conversation earlier that I'll be looking at agriculture, but from a different perspective, actually, from also the perspective of private investment in agriculture. I have three gentlemen joining me. Honorable Oyewole Oshenaike is the chairman and chief executive officer at LICIA Group, and he's also an international trade expert. He's at my far left. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nancy.
How are you doing today?
Okay.
Okay. Then to my immediate left is Soren Bostrup Sorensen. He's the ED North Trade Denmark. Welcome to the...
Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation.
Nice to have you. All right, Steeson is an agro-business expert. Steen, welcome to the show too.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
In fact, at the beginning of the program, I did say that Denmark is now the third happiest country in the world. For Denmark, it was #1 for a while, but I think the country, came to number 2 in 2016, number 2 in 2017, and number 3 in 2018. But pretty much, you guys look happy to me.
Thanks very much. We are doing our best.
We are happy.
Yes, you are happy people. And you know why? I think the happiness is born by the fact that your welfare system, things happen to move in Denmark than some other countries around the world, which you have beaten. But let's take it from the area of especially business. And let me start with Honorable Oyewole. Why do you think that agriculture is really something that we should focus on?
Thank you, Nancy. If you look at Nigeria, going by our history, agribusiness have always been our inheritance. There is none of us here who his father or his parent has not asked one day when we're growing up that, oh, go to the farm or do this in those days. So which means agribusiness happens to be our inheritance, economic inheritance.
But have we been able to explore and exploit the gains of agriculture?
That is really the area where we have come in. You see, big thanks to President Muhammadu Buhari's government that have seen it viable for us to now diversify into agriculture business and begin to change our economic perspective, grow our economy. The value is here. Nigeria has the most fertile land to grow all of this produce.
But are you thinking that we're doing enough of it? Because it's so much about financing in agriculture. There are a lot of bottlenecks in that ecosystem. A lot of people still don't have the prerequisites to finance or to get that finance, because you're talking now about collateral. Though the CBN has come up with different initiatives to say, okay, that the interest rates for agriculture and manufacturing come at a single digit. But, you know, there are still bottlenecks.
I will come in that our financial system is really nothing to write home about. When LICIA Integrated started 2012, my company engaged in a trade exchange with Dubai business expert. We tagged it Dubai Nigerian Trade and Investment Exhibition. And it was frustrated by unnecessary bottleneck by bank. So frustrated. So we, over the time, because we believe in Nigerian value, we keep on doing our best to make sure we support the government of the day to move the economy forward. But the problem is the banking system. The CBN has over-politicized our commercial banks. You see things on the paper, it's just mere paper document. There is this loan here, this loan here. How many people, how many less privileged can access those loans?
Okay, we'll come back to the to financing in a bit, but let me bring Soren in here. Both of you are from an environment where agriculture is being utilized and maximized, I must say. Like I said at the beginning of the program, Denmark has that advantage, especially in dairy, I know, cattle breeding. You know, when I did interview the ambassador, the Danish ambassador to Nigeria some months or a year or so back, he was talking to me about how dairy is being done there and all of that, you know, and perhaps some things we can also learn. With your experience, do you think that Nigeria has been able to tap into the gains and the profits that we should be making from agriculture?
No.
Very blatant, no.
But of course, there's more behind that answer. I think when you look at the countryside, it's so fertile. So you have all the basics for a very, very productive agriculture, right? And I think the reason why we have engaged with LICIA Group is that we believe that the experiences from, let's say, 150 years development in Denmark, where we can take the good things and leave the bad things, can be used in Nigeria. We have in Denmark where the farmers are engaged themselves in production, and I think that is very important, because I don't think any economy in reality can grow without food for the people. So that is actually where we believe we need to focus. How do we help to provide an environment where Danish investors from the agricultural industry find it interesting to come to this country, right? And together with local private enterprises, invest and build. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to, be a fantastic story tomorrow, but it will grow. And I think if people have food, you can start exporting. You have the right quality. There's a lot of things that will follow and support the society. But I don't think it'll happen without local private enterprises who has, well, I cannot say that on TV, has a certain part of their body, squeezed, and also foreign experts and investors who can help develop, who have done it before. And I think that's where Denmark has a strong, strong history, a strong, strong development background, and Denmark have been in Nigeria before. So I think it can happen again, and that's why we're here.
Steen, let me bring you into this. How fundamental is private investment in agriculture? Because in Nigeria now, we are torn between the government helping the agricultural sector and bringing the private sector into it, especially not just in the form of subsistence farming we're seeing right now, in the form of production, let me put it that way, but also private investment in food processing. So how fundamental is private investment?
It is really fundamental. I mean, all world leaders these days are talking about the food security. Growing population in the world is really becoming a challenge. Economic challenges, political challenges, challenges from climate factors and things like that. You need to find the best possible way between public-private partnerships. And that is also how the international institutions look at it, World Bank and so on. They look at this concept of engaging private funds, private funding, private companies, entities into the, which was before a public task to develop agriculture. But you have to join hands here. That's how we see it. And we also see that in many, many cases, the private difference with the private capital can make the difference of the project. From a Danish perspective, we feel we have the know-how, we have the technology, we can bring this into selected areas where we define what specific project we want to develop.
What are those,
we have to look at sustainability, of course.
Which areas are you taking a look at now? Because when you're talking of agriculture, it's vast actually. We have crop production, livestock, and all of that.
We are trying to identify a couple of projects where we will start. Dairy farming is one thing. I mean, I'm sure we all agree that it's a good thing that we can bring milk not only to children, but I mean to consumers as a whole. Also, when you look into the meat sector, how can we produce better meat for the consumer market? It's also a matter of nutrition. It's also a matter of course, marketing a new product that can satisfy demanding consumers. I mean, there's a huge consumer market in Nigeria coming up here, and the consumers, they should have the best possible food they can get. And by certain investments in this sector, you can do that. We can produce, of course, the meat in the right way. We can cut it up in the right way. We can present it to the consumers in the right way. And that is all to the advantage of the consumer markets and also to the economy as a whole.
So that means that you are bringing into the fold Nigerian farmers into all of this. So it's not just, let's say, it's not about, because a lot has been said, that Nigeria, we're a consuming nation, and we have the capacity to produce what we eat and eat what we produce. So it's not a matter of seeing countries like dump Nigeria not being a dumping ground,
No.
isn't it?
No, you have all the, you can say, the basics to be a very wealthy, producing agricultural nation. It doesn't happen today for different reasons. And that is what I think we, together with LICIA Group and Danish investors, Danish agricultural institutions, would like to change. Step by step. You don't take a ladder by jumping to the top, you take it step by step, and you need to engage the farmers, you need to engage and train, educate people so they know how to develop the business. As I can use an example, over the last 25 years, the agricultural production in Denmark have grown by 25%, but the pollution footsteps have dropped by 45%. So you can see we are getting more and more healthy, and at the same time we have managed to increase the production. Some of these things we can use in Nigeria, right? But we need to take it step by step. I don't think that you can say a Nigerian cow, will produce 30 liters of milk
No, it
the
doesn't
first
do
day.
that now.
Right, but they do that in Denmark. So, but if we can bring it from, let's say, the 3 or 4 liters today to 10, that would do a dramatic difference.
Now that brings me to the question, which is, the big elephant in the room, I must say. I don't know how long you've been in Nigeria, but here in Nigeria we have cattle. I would want Honorable Oyewole to respond first before both respond. Here in Nigeria we see cattle moving up and down. In fact, when I was driving up the hill, when I was coming up the hill this morning, you saw the hill you climbed to the studio. I saw cattle. Cattle was climbing the hill with me in front of my car. I don't think we have that in Denmark.
No.
At least the ambassador told me that.
No, that's true.
When he came. So you see those cows, they are exercising, they are not being maximized. Honorable Oyewole, respond to this. This is a country that has been able... Okay, let me just hold my fire, respond.
Nancy, I will not go much into the politics behind
It's a business question. It's not a political question.
because let me tell you, the government of the day, we'll begin to take it one by one. The government of the day knows what they can do about it. Okay? Maybe something somewhere, I can understand it. But these cows moving about can be stored in a place and still make money out of them. Farmers will grow the grass they can use in feeding them, and you see the cow rearer can buy the grass from the farmer and still make money and develop the cow without allowing them flux around like this. So Nancy, I won't go much into that. I'm into agribusiness and purely that. I brought this wonderful Denmark group into Nigerian system because the system needs to now, the private sector people need to now begin to look outside the box, that how can we assist the government to achieve
now,
this?
That brings me to the question, and it's still for you. I'll come back to you both.
Fair enough.
The question is, with all this engagement that our government is having with private sector, especially abroad, the president is in China right now. The president goes to one country or the other. He was in the United States, I think, earlier this year, where we got a commitment to help in mechanization.
How many private sector goes with him?
In mechanization, for example, because we do not have many tractors in the country. I think the tractors we have in the country are like 15,000. There are some places you will go to, they don't have tractors. How much of that engagement has yielded fruit in terms of seeing guys like this come back to Nigeria and interfacing with our own people, and the result is out there beyond talk?
Nancy, let me cut in there. Nancy, if the private sector in Nigeria could look or could begin to do things like LICIA Group, I think Nigeria will become a better place. We have faced a very difficult time in the company in attracting private sector, foreign private sector into the Nigerian system. I'll tell you, I've been doing mine without involvement of any government.
How have you been? That's what I'm saying.
It has been very difficult, Nancy. It has been very difficult. You go into debt doing this. At the end of the day, when you now needed the government to assist you at a point, maybe by way of giving you a partnership letter or stuff, you see bottleneck everywhere. So I've been so lucky to have met maybe a grace. Okay? And I want, you see, I'm only not doing it by ourselves alone. I'm going to involve a lot of private sector into using my means into growing Nigerian economy. Let's think outside the box. We should look government into doing things. But let's privately involve and engage these things and bring it back home.
Okay, Soren wants to say something.
Yeah, because there needs to be a cooperation between public and private sector.
Yes.
And let me give you an example. We built a dairy. Well, we need to bring the milk to the consumer. If there's no roads or trucks, then nothing will happen. So you can say this could be a job for the public sector to make sure that there's infrastructure in place to support the private sector projects so that the people will get the food. Because one of the things that we have seen during our visits to Nigeria is that you produce, for instance, oranges enough to support the whole of Europe, but they land on the ground. They don't get to the consumer, they don't get to the public, they're, sorry to use the word, they're wasted, right? That is just an example. And if we could organize that in a smart way, there's always what you would in Europe call low-hanging fruits, right? Because I think if you want a population to be happy, you need them to have a full stomach.
Yes.
I mean, there's no doubt about that.
Nancy, as I'm talking to you now, we have engaged some state government. As right now, as I'm talking to you, we are with government of Akwa Ibom State, who has given us enabling environment to come and grow the agro business in Akwa Ibom. As I'm talking to you, we will soon have the largest greenhouse in the whole of Africa.
Okay, I think I'll halt you at that. Let's quickly take a break, and when we come back from the break, we'll continue, and that way I think we'll get into the concluding part of today's program. Do stay. All right, welcome back. In case you're just joining us, I have three gentlemen with me, and we've been talking about agriculture and how it should be done maximally in Nigeria so that we can actually get the dividends of real agriculture, the way it's done overseas here. All right, let me come back to you, Steen. And we've established the fact that Nigeria is blessed. We have land, we have the resources, we have a good weather, you know, all of that. To support agriculture. But let's take a look at the export angle of it, because for now, or by now, we should be making so much foreign exchange from different agricultural products, except away from oil, which Nigeria is known.
Well, it's a matter of foreign exchange, but it's also a matter of employment. I mean, regional development around the various businesses. Anybody can benefit from that. But there's also the export angle, as you're mentioning. At a certain time, if you go back in history, Nigeria exported a lot. And in our history in Denmark, it is actually based on, I mean, our improvement of agriculture was based on export potential. We started exporting 100 years ago via our cooperatives, where we produce dairy products, pork meat mainly.
So you have
dairy
cooperatives.
Products. We have cooperatives that are kind of being more and more commercialized, of course, because the concept in itself is pretty old, but it's well functioning because it gives ownership of the people who produce. But they own, then they bring in capital to establish new slaughterhouses. We have the biggest slaughterhouse in Northern Europe, dairies and so on and so forth. And that gives us the opportunity to start an export profile. And we are today exporting 25% of all Danish export today, that is food products, food-related products. We are exporting more than 2 million tons of pork meat around the world to 130 markets. And still, we are only a population of 5.5 million people.
Yes, they're up to 6 million.
So we have really been focusing and concentrating on it. And I cannot see why parts of Nigeria, where we have the fertile land, cannot, start a process more or less the same.
So what have been the missing links? I understand we've been talking a lot, but some may say it's financing. Some may say, like you alluded, the infrastructure to also support market access. Some may say we have to do some other things. What exactly can Nigeria do right now to harness the potential in agriculture beyond lip service? You want to help me out?
Well, you see, there are two things. The first thing is you need to talk about it, because without talk, nobody gets ideas.
We've been talking about it.
I know, but I have to mention it. And the second thing, do as you talk. Right? And that is very often what is not happening, right? That you have brilliant ideas and then nothing happens. We are, in our group, seniors, as you can look at our faces. We are retired from normal life or business life, but we felt that we needed to do something. So we looked at Steen, who has been working in Nigeria for some years back in the embassy. We said, okay, where is there a market where they have all the potential, where we maybe want to do a difference? And I think one of the real things that is needed is follow up. Make sure that you make systems that intensify people, so they feel there's a reward if I keep on doing it. If the reward disappears, then why should I bring my cow to the slaughterhouse? Why should I feed my cow the way they tell me if there's not a reward? That could, for instance, it's an example, by saying if you bring this quality to the slaughterhouse, we will pay you X per kilo. If you only bring this quality to the slaughterhouse, we'll pay you Y per kilo.
So there should be incentives.
Right? And you can then say, but I will teach you how to do the best product, right? And then you cannot grow the agribusiness without education. It is a fundamental thing.
That's very important.
Yeah, that's exactly, because you cannot just say, here we build an agro-business unit. Here it is, put it down, start operating. You need to have training, you need to have training courses, you need to engage people in the right way and train them professionally. And you were also mentioning incentives. There must be a line of incentives in order that you can have this agro-business unit to operate. Lots of funds are being used in daily, weekly, annually training of people in the slaughterhouses, in the dairies. How do we make better products? How do you listen to the trends of the market, how to turn out the right products? But training also on the primary production is very important. And that is basically a Danish concept. We always bring with us, when we transfer know-how and the technology, training programs. Pre-training programs where we also train trainers, so that we can be sure by the time we actually have established the project, then it is sustainable, then it will carry on, and then you have an ongoing business.
Honorable Oyewole, where do you want to come in right now?
3 things to it. Number one, government should not theoretically, practically formulate policy that will assist private sector to do more in the agri system. Provide an enabling environment. Okay? Handle crisis of land dispute and all stuff. Security.
Like the farmers' herdsmen clashes right now and all that.
And number 3, we need to revisit our financial institution. A lot of job need to be done there.
Now, let me bring them again, and I want you to answer in 30 seconds. How do the financial institutions in Denmark assist the growth of agriculture in Denmark?
They actually bring the funds on conditions. For instance, they say, fine, if you build this, we will give you an interest-free loan for XX years, but you have to meet this benchmark, this benchmark, this benchmark.
Okay, because...
as an example. And I think Steen knows much more about the financing part.
Banks are also profit-making institutions.
That's right. Well, I mean, first of all, agriculture has, of course, kind of collected capital over the years, and as far as they want to, they can finance what they like. But I mean, when you need to, especially when you look at export, and you look at, for instance, acquiring dairies in different places, slaughterhouses and facilities in the export market, then you need to have some export credit funds that work. You need to have semi-public financing in place to support the private investors that go out in this case and invest in these facilities, and this works very well.
So does that mean that the banking institutions, for example, in Denmark, understand agriculture? Because here in Nigeria, we're beginning to see that some of our banks have agricultural desks and scope, but they are still not making impact. Very quickly, we have to go now.
Our bankers need to tap into global banking system, okay? In abroad, when a corporate organization have a corporate account running in a bank, after some years, the bank will call such corporate company to sit down, help them review how far they have gone, help them grow.
Okay. Okay, I think we'll leave it at that. But I want to say many thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you for inviting us
today. Honorable Oyewole is the Chairman and Chief Executive of LICIA Group. He's also an international trade expert. I've also been speaking with Soren, Bostrup, Sorensen, ED North Trade, Denmark, and Steen, Steeson, an agro-business expert. Steen, you've been in Nigeria for a while, so I don't need to ask you what's your best or favorite food?
I like any kind of meat I can get here. I'm a meat eater coming from Denmark.
Okay.
Thank you.
How about you? What food have you tasted since?
I don't know, because I've eaten some things I didn't know what it was.
Okay, so Honorable, you need to take them out for lunch. I'll take him out for lunch.
But your food is very spicy.
Very spicy.
Forward to it.
Okay, he said he will give you amala.
Okay. Thank you so much.
All right, that's the much we can take on today's edition of the program. Many thanks for joining us. Be the best you can be, and be the change that you want to see. I am Nnaji. Bye now.